My wife's promotion went straight to her head, but I never expected her to announce new household rules over Sunday dinner with her parents. I provide for this family now. My money, my rules, she declared, setting down her fork with the confidence of someone who just solved world hunger. I looked around the table. Her mother nodded approvingly. Her father shifted uncomfortably in his seat. I simply started clapping. Congratulations on your provider power, I said with a smile that probably looked genuine to everyone else. She beamed like I'd just crowned her queen of the universe. What she didn't realize was that I'd been keeping mental notes on our family finances for years. Every contribution, every bill, every expense that kept our household running smoothly. See, when we got married 5 years ago, we'd agreed on a partnership. She handled the mortgage payments and groceries. I covered the rent portion we still owed on our previous place, childcare for our twin daughters, the monthly support we sent to her parents, our vacation fund, utilities, and about a dozen other expenses that somehow never made it into her provider calculations. Her new job at the marketing firm came with a 40% salary bump, and suddenly she was earning more than me. That was genuinely great news until she started treating it like a power shift instead of a family blessing. So what does this mean exactly? I asked, cutting into my steak. It means I make the financial decisions now. Big purchases, vacation destinations, how we budget everything. Since I'm bringing in the majority of the income, I should have the majority of the say. Her mother actually applauded. Finally, someone who understands how marriage should work. I nodded thoughtfully, taking another bite. Makes perfect sense. The person who provides should definitely call the shots. The satisfaction on her face was almost comical. She'd expected pushback, arguments, maybe even a fight. Instead, she got complete agreement from her husband, and it felt like victory. Over the next few days, she started implementing her new system. She bought a new couch without asking, scheduled an expensive weekend spa trip with her friends, even changed our family phone plan to something that cost twice as much but had features we didn't need. I thought we should discuss these things, I mentioned after the couch delivery. Discussion implies we're equals in this decision. We're not anymore. I provide, I decide. That's when I realized she wasn't just drunk on her new salary. She genuinely believed that earning more money gave her the right to treat me like a junior partner in my own marriage. She'd forgotten that partnerships aren't just about who brings home the biggest paycheck. But I hadn't forgotten anything, especially not the exact amount I contributed monthly to keep her little kingdom running. Every autopay, every transfer, every check I wrote was documented in my head like a perfectly organized spreadsheet. She wanted to be the sole provider. She wanted to make all the rules based on her financial contributions. Perfect. I was about to give her exactly what she'd asked for, and I had a feeling she was going to hate every minute of it. The beautiful thing about her new philosophy was that it worked both ways. If the person who provides gets to make the rules, then logically, the person who stops providing should be able to step back from those responsibilities entirely. I started calculating that night. Rent contribution, $800 monthly. Childcare for both girls, $1,200. Her parents' support, $400. Vacation fund, $300. Utilities, phone, insurance premiums I covered. The numbers added up quickly. She declared herself the provider and established that money equals power in our household. Time to find out exactly how much power she actually wanted to handle. The next morning, I did something I'd never done before. I made a complete list of every financial obligation I handled monthly. Not just the obvious ones, but every automated payment, every recurring expense, every contribution that disappeared from my account so seamlessly that even I sometimes forgot about them. $800 for our rent shortfall from the old place. $1,200 for the girls' daycare at Little Scholars Academy. $400 to her parents because her dad's disability payments weren't enough. $300 to our joint vacation savings. $150 for my half of the electric bill. $90 for the family Netflix, Disney Plus, and streaming subscriptions she loved. $200 for car insurance on both vehicles. The list went on. When I finished calculating, I stared at the number on my phone screen. $2,700 monthly, not including the random expenses like school supplies, birthday gifts for family, or the emergency fund contributions I made when unexpected bills hit. My wife was strutting around the house like she'd invented money itself, but she was covering maybe 60% of our actual expenses. Her big provider salary was paying the mortgage, groceries, and her personal shopping sprees. Everything else, that was my department, apparently invisible to her new financial worldview. I'm thinking we should redo the kitchen, she announced Tuesday morning, scrolling through Pinterest while drinking coffee I'd bought. Something modern. Open concept. How much are we talking? We? I'm talking about 15,000. Maybe 20 if we do it right. I nodded like this made perfect sense. Sounds expensive. I can afford it. That's the whole point of making provider money. She spent the week acting like she'd been promoted to CEO of our family. Made dinner reservations at restaurants without asking if I was free. Bought the girls new bedroom furniture and had it delivered on a day I'd planned to take them to the park. Even signed us up for a more expensive gym membership because the current one wasn't upscale enough for her new status. Every decision came with the same justification. I provide for this family. This is what providers do. I watched it all happen with the patience of someone who knew exactly where this was heading. She was so focused on flexing her new financial muscles that she'd completely forgotten mine existed. Thursday evening, she came home with shopping bags from Target, Nordstrom, and some boutique I'd never heard of. New work wardrobe, she explained, spreading clothes across our bed. Appearances matter when you're in a provider role. Definitely, I agreed. Image is everything. Friday night, she suggested we hire a cleaning service. I'm too busy with my new responsibilities to keep up with housework. Providers shouldn't be scrubbing toilets. Makes total sense. Providers have more important things to focus on. She was eating up every word, completely missing the fact that I'd been agreeing with everything a little too enthusiastically. Her mother called that weekend, and I listened to her brag about how supportive her husband was being about her new role in the family. He completely understands that income determines authority, she told her mom while I was in the kitchen. Finally, a man who gets how modern marriages should work. Sunday afternoon, while she was at her expensive spa day, I sat down with my laptop and opened my banking app. Every automatic payment, every scheduled transfer, every recurring expense I'd been handling for years was listed in neat rows. I started with the smallest ones first. The streaming services, the magazine subscriptions, the premium grocery delivery service she loved but never paid for. One by one, I canceled the auto-pay authorizations. Then I moved to the bigger items. The daycare payment scheduled for next Friday. The rent contribution due on the 1st. Her parents' monthly support that usually went out on the 15th. I didn't cancel anything permanently. Just removed the automatic payments and transferred the money to a separate account I'd opened that morning. Every dollar she decided she didn't need my help with was going to stop flowing automatically into our joint responsibilities. She wanted to be the sole provider. She wanted to make unilateral decisions based on financial power. Perfect. Time to find out exactly how much providing she was actually prepared to handle. By the time she got home from her spa day, glowing and relaxed, I had everything mapped out. She'd get to experience her new provider role in full, starting with next week's bills. No arguments, no discussions, no drama. Just pure, logical consistency with the rules she'd established herself. The first test came exactly 1 week later. Tuesday morning, she was rushing around getting ready for work when her phone buzzed with a text from our old landlord. "That's weird," she muttered, reading the message. "He says we're short $800 on this month's payment for the old place." I looked up from my coffee, genuinely curious about how she'd handle this. "Huh, that is weird. Did you forget to transfer the money?" "No, I didn't forget anything. I just didn't transfer it." She stopped applying mascara and turned to face me. "What do you mean you didn't transfer it?" "Exactly what I said. I didn't make the payment this month." "Why not?" I set down my mug and gave her the same patient smile I'd been wearing all week. "Because you're the provider now. You make the financial decisions. You handle the family expenses. Remember?" Her mouth opened slightly, then closed. "That's not what I meant." "What did you mean exactly?" "I meant the big decisions. Vacations, furniture, major purchases. So you want to be the provider for fun expenses, but not the boring ones." She started to answer, then stopped. Even she could hear how that would sound. "Look, we agreed on certain arrangements. You pay for some things, I pay for others. Actually, you established new arrangements. You said your money, your rules. You said being the provider means making financial decisions. I'm just following your logic. This is ridiculous. Just make the payment." "To which account?" "My personal money. Because according to you, that's not family money anymore. That's just my money, and I get to decide how to spend it." The silence stretched between us while she processed this. Her provider confidence was meeting reality for the first time, in reality, wasn't being very cooperative. Fine, she said finally. I'll handle it this month. But we need to discuss this tonight. Absolutely. Providers should definitely discuss their financial decisions. She grabbed her purse and headed for the door, muttering something about communication that I pretended not to hear. That evening, she came home armed with talking points she'd obviously been rehearsing all day. We need to get back to our original arrangement. She started before I could even ask about her day. Which arrangement is that? You know what I mean. The way we split expenses before. Before what? She took a deep breath, clearly trying to stay patient. Before my promotion changed our income dynamic. Oh, you want to go back to the partnership model. Exactly. But yesterday you said partnerships don't work when income levels are unequal. You said the person who provides should make the decisions. I didn't mean every single bill. Which bills did you mean? She stared at me like I was being deliberately obtuse. The important ones. Rent isn't important. You know it is. So are you saying you want to be the provider for some expenses, but not others? Like, you'll provide for the fun stuff, but I should still handle the boring utility bills. That's not what I'm saying. Then what are you saying? She sat down heavily on her new couch, the one she'd bought without asking me. I'm saying we should both contribute according to our abilities. That sounds reasonable. So you'll contribute according to your ability, and I'll contribute according to mine. Right. Great. So as the provider, you can handle the rent payment. That falls well within your ability. The frustration on her face was beautiful to watch. She wanted to go back to the old system where I handled the boring expenses while she got to play provider with the exciting purchases, but she couldn't say that without admitting her whole my money, my rules speech was just about getting her way on shopping decisions. This is not what I meant, and you know it. Help me understand what you did mean then. I meant that I should have more say in major financial decisions because I'm earning more now. And you should. As the provider, you get to decide how much you want to provide. If rent isn't worth providing for, that's your provider choice. She rubbed her temples like she was getting a headache. Can you please just make the payment so we don't get in trouble with the landlord? I already told you, I don't make those decisions anymore. You're the provider. Providers provide. Thursday morning brought another text from the landlord, this one less friendly. She showed me her phone with the kind of panic that suggested she'd never actually dealt with angry creditors before. He says if we don't pay by Friday, he's charging a late fee and reporting it to the credit agencies. That sounds serious. What's your plan? My plan? It's our credit score. Is it? Because according to you, financial decisions are made by the provider. So it's the provider's credit score, the provider's responsibility, and the provider's problem to solve. She transferred the $800 that afternoon, but I could tell the lesson was just starting to sink in. She'd wanted the authority without the accountability, the power without the responsibility. Friday evening, she was quieter than usual during dinner. The girls were chattering about their day at school, but her mind was clearly elsewhere. Something bothering you? I asked. I'm just thinking about money stuff. Provider problems? She shot me a look that could have melted steel. You're really enjoying this, aren't you? I'm just respecting the rules you established. You said providers make the decisions, so I'm letting you provide and decide. For $800. This month. Next month there might be other things that need providing for. The realization hit her face like cold water. She was starting to understand that being the provider wasn't just about having authority over fun purchases. It was about actually providing for everything. And we were just getting started. The second week of her provider education began on Monday morning with a phone call from Little Scholars Academy. She answered while making breakfast, and I watched her face change from sleepy confusion to wide-awake panic. What do you mean our payment was declined? She glanced at me across the kitchen. Yes, I'll call you back. Daycare problems? I asked, buttering my toast with deliberate calm. They said our payment bounced. The $1,200 for this month. That's strange. Did you set up the new payment method? New payment method? Well, since you're the provider now, I assumed you'd want to handle the girls' childcare directly. You know, provider responsibilities. She stared at me like I'd just announced I was moving to Mars. You didn't pay for daycare? I transferred that money to my personal savings. Providers should handle their own family expenses, right? This is insane. The girls need daycare, so we can both work. Absolutely they do. That's why it's so important that the provider handles it properly. I never said I wanted to pay for daycare. You said you wanted to make financial decisions for the family. Childcare seems like a pretty fundamental family expense. She grabbed her phone and started scrolling through her banking app, probably calculating whether she could cover $1,200 on top of everything else. The math wasn't working in her favor, and we both knew it. I'll transfer the money this time, but we're going to have a serious conversation tonight. Of course, providers need to communicate their decisions clearly. That afternoon, while she was dealing with daycare payments and late fees, her mother called me directly. "What's this I hear about you not contributing to household expenses anymore?" "I'm contributing exactly as much as the provider wants me to contribute. Don't play games with me." She's upset about having to cover bills you used to handle. She established that the person who earns more should make the financial decisions. I'm respecting her authority. That's not what she meant, and you know it. Then maybe she should clarify what she did mean. Communication is important in provider relationships. Her mother hung up on me, which I took as a good sign that the message was getting through. Wednesday brought the next test. Her father called during dinner, and I could hear his voice through the phone, even from across the table. "The support payment didn't come through this month. Your mother's worried sick about the electric bill." She looked at me with desperation that was becoming familiar. "Can we talk about this later, Dad? I'll call you back." After she hung up, the silence stretched until our daughters asked if they could watch TV in the living room. "$400, she said once we were alone. "That's what your parents need monthly, yes. You've been sending that for 2 years. I was contributing that amount when we were partners. But providers handle their own family obligations. They're your in-laws. They're your parents. And you're the provider who makes financial decisions for your family." She pushed food around her plate without eating. "I can't afford rent, daycare, my parents' support, and everything else on top of my regular expenses. That sounds like a budgeting challenge. Providers face those all the time. Stop calling me the provider like it's some kind of joke. You announced it at Sunday dinner in front of your parents. You said providing gives you authority. I'm just acknowledging your chosen role." Friday afternoon, her father called me at work. What kind of man stops supporting his wife's elderly parents? The kind of man whose wife declared herself the sole financial provider for the family. That's not how marriage works. According to your daughter, it is exactly how marriage works. The person with more money makes the decisions and handles the expenses. She didn't mean her parents' bills. She said family expenses. Are her parents not family? He started to argue, then seemed to realize he was trapped by his daughter's own logic. This is going to cause problems. It already has. She's learning that being a provider involves more than just spending money on things you want. That weekend, she sat at the kitchen table with her laptop, calculator, and what looked like a migraine. Bills were spread across the surface like a financial crime scene. "I need your help with the math," she admitted without looking up. "I'm happy to help. What are you calculating? How much it actually costs to run this household every month?" That's smart provider planning. She glared at me, but continued. "Mortgage is $2,200. Groceries are about $600. Insurance, utilities, my car payment, credit cards. That's already $4,100. Sounds right so far. Add daycare, rent on the old place, my parents, vacation fund, and all the small stuff you were covering." She stared at the calculator display. $6,800 monthly. Wow, being a provider is expensive. I bring home $5,200 after taxes. That seems like a provider math problem. She closed the laptop and looked at me directly for the first time in days. "I can't afford to be the sole provider. But you said the person who earns more should have the authority. I still think that's fair for major decisions." Define major. Vacations, big purchases, home improvements. What about daycare? That's $15,000 annually. That's different. How? She couldn't answer that without admitting she wanted authority over fun expenses, but not responsibility for necessary ones. Her provider fantasy was crashing into provider reality, and reality was winning. Sunday evening, her mother called again. This time, she put it on speaker. "Your father and I have been talking. Maybe you two should see a counselor about these money issues." My wife looked at me hopefully, like counseling might reset everything back to the way it was before her promotion went to her head. "I think that's a great idea," I said. "The provider should definitely get professional help managing all these new financial responsibilities." By the third week, desperation had replaced her provider confidence entirely. She started each morning checking our bank balances like someone expecting bad news, which she usually found. Tuesday morning brought a call from her parents' electric company. "Past due notice. Final warning before disconnection. You have to help me," she said, holding the phone with shaking hands. They're going to shut off my parents' power. That sounds like a provider emergency. Stop. Just stop with the provider thing. I need $400 today, or my dad's medical equipment won't work. That's serious. What's your plan? I don't have 400 extra dollars. I'm already overdrawn on 2 accounts trying to keep up with everything. She looked genuinely scared, which was a first. The woman who declared financial authority 3 weeks ago was now begging for help with basic bills. Maybe you could cut back on some expenses, I suggested. That new gym membership, the premium car wash service, the organic meal delivery. Those are barely 200 total. The kitchen renovation you started planning? I canceled that last week. The spa days. Canceled those too. She'd quietly been dismantling her provider lifestyle piece by piece, but it wasn't enough to cover the real expenses she'd inherited with her new role. I'm going to be completely honest with you, she said, sitting down across from me. I screwed up. I had no idea how much you were actually contributing to this family. $2,700 monthly, not counting emergencies and extras. I know. I added it up. Multiple times. So what are you asking me? I'm asking if we can go back to the way things were before. Before what? Before I said that stupid thing about providers making rules. You mean back when we were partners? Yes, exactly that. I let the silence build while she waited for my answer. She needed to understand that partnerships don't survive ultimatums and power plays. Partners don't declare themselves sole providers, I said finally. I know. Partners don't establish authority based on paycheck size. I know that too. Partners don't dismiss each other's contributions as irrelevant. You're right. I was completely wrong. She meant it this time. The arrogance was gone, replaced by genuine remorse and a healthy dose of financial panic. Wednesday evening, she came home with a printout of our complete financial picture. Every expense, every contribution, every bill we'd been splitting for years. I want to show you something, she said, spreading papers across the dining table. Look at this breakdown. She'd color-coded everything. Green for expenses she'd been covering, blue for mine, yellow for shared costs we split equally. 63% of our household expenses were your responsibility, she said quietly. I was covering 37% and calling myself the provider. Math doesn't lie. No, it doesn't. And I've been lying to myself about how partnerships actually work. Thursday brought another crisis. The vacation fund we'd been building for our trip to Disney World was completely empty. She'd been pulling money from it to cover the bills I'd stopped paying. The girls are going to be devastated, she said, staring at the zero balance. We promised them that trip for Christmas. Providers have to make tough choices about family priorities. Please stop punishing me. I get it. I was wrong about everything. This isn't punishment. This is education. You wanted to understand what providing actually means. I understand now. Do you? Because 3 weeks ago you thought being a provider meant having authority over spending decisions. Now you're discovering that providers have to make sacrifices, handle stress, and disappoint family members when money runs out. She nodded, looking completely defeated. Friday afternoon, her mother showed up at our house unannounced. She walked into the kitchen where we were both sitting with our laptops, trying to reorganize our budget. This has gone far enough, she announced. Your father and I raised you better than to let pride destroy your marriage. Mom, please don't. Don't what? Don't point out that you created this mess with your big provider speech. Don't mention that you've been calling me crying every night because you can't afford to take care of your own parents. My wife's face went red. Her mother's tough love was hitting every target. You got a promotion and decided that made you the boss of your husband. Now you're learning that being the boss means actually handling the responsibilities, not just collecting the privileges. I already admitted I was wrong. Admitting you were wrong to me doesn't fix anything. You need to admit you were wrong to your husband and mean it enough to never pull this provider nonsense again. Her mother turned to me. And you've made your point. She understands now that partnerships can't survive financial power plays. Do you think she really understands? Look at her. She's been surviving on coffee and stress for 2 weeks, trying to cover bills she never knew existed. She understands. That evening, after her mother left, we sat in the living room while the girls played upstairs. I need to say something, and I need you to really hear me, she began. I'm listening. When I got that promotion, it felt like validation for all the years I'd worked so hard. But instead of being grateful that we could improve our family's situation together, I turned it into some kind of competition between us. That's what it felt like. I dismissed everything you contribute to this family. I acted like your money was less important because there was less of it. I tried to turn our partnership into a hierarchy with me at the top. You did. And when you showed me what that actually meant, I couldn't handle it. I wanted the authority without the responsibility. I wanted to be the provider for fun decisions, but not for boring bills. That's not how providing works. No, it's not. Real providing means sacrificing your wants for your family's needs. It means staying up late worried about bills. It means disappointing yourself so you don't disappoint the people you love. She was finally getting it. Being a provider isn't about power or authority. It's about responsibility and sacrifice. I want to be your partner again, she said. Not your boss, not your provider, not your dependent. Your equal partner. What does that look like? It looks like both of us contributing according to our abilities and making decisions together. It looks like respecting what each person brings to the family, whether that's money or time or support. Can you handle that when your salary is higher than mine? My salary doesn't make me more important than you. It just makes me responsible for a bigger share of our expenses. For the first time in 3 weeks, that sounded like something I could work with. The final lesson came the following Sunday, exactly 1 month after her original provider declaration. Her parents had invited us for dinner, and I could tell she was nervous about facing them after the financial chaos of the past few weeks. Before we go, she said, adjusting her outfit for the 3rd time, I need you to know that I'm going to tell them the truth about what happened. What truth is that? That I was completely out of line with the provider comment. That I disrespected you and our partnership. That everything that happened was my fault. You don't have to do that. Yes, I do. They heard me make that announcement, and they need to hear me take it back. At dinner, she waited until we'd finished eating and the girls were watching cartoons in the living room. Mom, Dad, I need to apologize for something. She took a deep breath. A month ago, I sat at this table and announced that I was the provider for my family, and that gave me the right to make unilateral decisions. Her parents exchanged glances. They remembered. I was wrong. Completely, embarrassingly wrong. I let my promotion go to my head, and I treated my husband like he was less important because his paycheck was smaller than mine. Her father started to speak, but she held up her hand. Let me finish. When he stopped covering the expenses I'd dismissed as unimportant, I discovered that he was actually responsible for 63% of our household costs. Bills I didn't even think about because they got paid automatically every month. Her mother's eyebrows raised. 63%? Rent, childcare, your monthly support, vacation fund, utilities, insurance, streaming services, and about 20 other expenses that kept our life running smoothly while I focused on the mortgage and groceries. I had no idea, her father said quietly. Neither did I. I thought being the provider meant having authority over the fund purchases, but I learned that real providers sacrifice for their families. They lose sleep over bills. They give up things they want so their family can have things they need. She turned to look at me. My husband taught me that lesson by letting me experience what I claimed I wanted. Complete financial responsibility for our family. And, her mother prompted, and I couldn't handle it. Within 3 weeks, I was overdrawn on multiple accounts, crying every night and begging him to go back to our partnership model. The silence around the table was heavy but not uncomfortable. They were processing what she'd said. A real partnership isn't about who earns more, she continued. It's about both people contributing according to their abilities and making decisions together. I forgot that, and it almost cost me my marriage. Her father cleared his throat. So where do you stand now? I answered this time. We're rebuilding our partnership on a foundation of mutual respect. She'll contribute more to our shared expenses because she earns more, but we'll make major decisions together as equals. And the monthly support? Her mother asked, clearly worried. That continues, my wife said firmly. It's a family responsibility, and we handle family responsibilities together. What about when she gets promoted again? Her father asked me directly. Or when your income changes? The percentages might shift, but the partnership principle stays the same. Neither of us gets to claim authority over the other based on paycheck size. Her mother nodded approvingly. That sounds like a mature approach. On the drive home, she was quieter than usual. Regrets? I asked. Just one. I regret that it took 3 weeks of financial panic for me to remember what partnership actually means. It could have been worse. You could have doubled down and destroyed our marriage over pride. Is that what you thought would happen? I thought you might realize that wanting authority without accountability isn't sustainable. I hoped you'd choose partnership over power. And if I hadn't, then you would have learned that being a solo provider is a lonely, expensive job. Monday morning, she made coffee for both of us, just like she used to before her promotion went to her head. I transferred money to cover the rent payment, she said, handing me my mug. Thank you. I also set up automatic payments for daycare and my parents' support from my account. That makes sense since you're covering the larger share now. And I canceled the premium gym membership, the expensive car detailing, and the organic meal service. Provider sacrifices? Partner priorities. I'd rather have a fully funded vacation fund and emergency savings than fancy gym equipment I barely use. That afternoon, she texted me a screenshot of our joint savings account. For the first time in a month, we were building wealth instead of just covering bills. Look what happens when both partners contribute according to their abilities, her message read. 6 months later, she got another promotion. This time, she came home excited to discuss how we should adjust our contributions and what goals we wanted to prioritize as a family. More money means more opportunities for us, she said, emphasizing the word us. Any thoughts about provider rules? I asked with a grin. Just one. The person who provides gets to feel good about taking care of their family. That's the only rule that matters. She learned that true strength in a marriage isn't about establishing dominance over your partner. It's about building something together that neither person could create alone. Her promotion had given us more resources, but our partnership was what made those resources meaningful. The woman who once declared my money, my rules, discovered that the best relationships follow a different principle entirely. Our money, our decisions, our future. Together. Her provider power had been an illusion. Our partnership power was real, and it was strong enough to survive her temporary insanity and my strategic patience. That's the kind of strength that lasts.